Take your time. Hello folks, Phil Gallagher, aka ThrabenU here for another Legacy video, and today Greg has sent us FaerieStill. The still part, we know and love that. That is Standstill. When a player casts a spell, sacrifice Standstill. If you do, each of that player's opponents draws 3 cards. So the general theory with Standstill is that you use various counterspells to get yourself out of the early game. And we're going to go a little hard here with things like Flare of Denial to have more actual, factual, just say no to everything counterspells. And then you drop a Standstill. If you already have some little threat in play, or you can deploy a land afterwards that allows you to win the game without casting a spell, or maybe sometimes do something like cycle a Shark Typhoon to create a larger body, well, then you can win the game without ever cracking your own Standstill. Unfortunately, we live in a world where control is, let's check the number on it, because it's bad. Control is currently 14% of the legacy metagame, which is one of the lowest numbers that I have ever seen there. Control is basically dead as a macro archetype. It just does not make sense to be playing Control in Legacy right now. Now that we've acknowledged that, we are, of course, playing Control today. There are some upsides of the Control variant that we are playing. Number 1, if everyone and their mom is playing combo, then we do just have an absolutely massive pile of counter spells in the main deck here. Let's not forget that Spell Pierce. That is 19 main deck counter spells, and Greg's original sideboard had even more counter spells in the sideboard than what are currently there. But I thought it was necessary to at least play a couple of things that can answer creatures that actually resolve, because the main deck, while very good at countering spells, is kind of shit out of luck if something actually sticks. We can temporarily bounce something with Brazen Borrower, and then hopefully counter it on the way back down, but I just wanted a little more redundancy there. We are a cantrip light deck as Greg has built this. We are not running both Ponder and Brainstorm, and we're actually very light on fetch lands as well. This deck is just running a shit ton of basic islands, and there's a very strong statement about basic islands in the sideboard here. The Eldrazi Menace and various other decks that are cheating on mana are very popular within Legacy right now, so being able to just say no to those non-basic lands is a big deal. Hopefully against something like Eldrazi, they don't have Cavern of Souls, we Force of Will the first threat, and then Harbinger of the Seas kind of carries the game from there. And again, 4 of those is a fucking statement on the metagame. So this is FaerieStill specifically. We are playing a handful of fairies here, which are kind of unimpressive, to give Spellstutter Sprite a little bit more oomph and allow it to counter larger spells. These fairies are meant to be used with Flare of Denial when you don't have the Sprite, but we'll see whether or not running the fairies is actually better than, say, running an entire set of Tamiyo, or a lot of times these decks will be built around something like Ninja of Deep Hours that can get in there and draw cards while recycling sprites, or maybe Snapcaster Mages as well. We'll kind of see how it plays out in practice. We do have some land-based finishers. This is a wasteland format, so these aren't going to be, 100% viable. And things get a little weird if we do board in the entire playset of these in terms of actually winning the game. So we'll see how that feels too. With that being said, folks, if you need some cards, consider shopping at toamagic.com. I shop there myself. I'm going to be ordering some cards for MagicCon Chicago. I've been saying that forever. I still haven't placed my order, but I'm going to pick it up on site, so that's fine. Remember, you always get free shipping, and if you have a major tournament and you need cards in a rush, they also do have expedited shipping options, so you can get your cards fast. With that being said, let's battle. Go from the future here. This is a great league. The first matchup, is a rough matchup. So maybe skip that one if you're on a limited time budget. Otherwise, most of the rest of the rounds are really, really intricate. Enjoy the show. Okay. Without the second land here, we lose access to the majority of this hand. So I don't think I am down with this one. I do not believe that this hand beats any deck in Legacy unless we just force a negation a first turn play and my opponent was on like an all-in combo deck. We are unfortunately going to 5 for our first hand, and we are back to a similar problem with the first hand. On 5, we are probably going to keep this. I can keep 2 fairies and cantrip off the second one, trying to hit the land drop. I can keep this, getting rid of Cloud of Fairies for sure, and then a counterspell of some kind. I think since I am tapping out to play these fairies, Spell Pierce loses some stock. Verdant Catacombs. Into Bayou. Maybe a fair Green Sun deck. Going to be the thought. Yeah, you got it. I don't think I get to mess around with that. So we got our second land drop. That's good. I can, in theory, daze a 3-drop that happens here. This is super annoying because Orcish Bowmasters is not really that good of a card, but I absolutely need to redraw off of this, which is a little embarrassing, but that's where we're at. So let's take our redraw. I should technically attack first. We are not Surveil landing in this deck, right? We are not. We are a very, very, very long way away from activating that. So we're going to now reach a conceptual deck building problem. My opponent is going to play some card this turn. Or not. Not as good. Okay. Endurance? Fuck, I can't attack into that. Damn it. It's so clearly telegraphed. My opponent has 5 cards in here. There's no way they've got Stone Cold Nothing. Okay. I was slightly wrong on the read. So we have the wrong counterspell here. We don't get to answer Opposition Agent. And as a reminder, I have very, very, very little game 1 removal. So I think we are sadly doing this and hoping to keep the board clear-ish and then find a standstill or something. All right. Note that this bounces non-lands, so we can't just bounce Dryad Arbor. If my opponent just has a bunch of flash creatures like Endurances and Bowmasters, I cannot overstate how screwed I am. That's not great for me. That is really not great for me. That is a cantripping creature that walls Brazen Borrower. And later on, the Death Touch is a problem. I don't think it makes sense to trade here. I think my opponent is ultimately going to be something like Alurin, maybe? Yeah, I think I'm just kind of holding here. I am passing the turn. So having to trade Fairy Miscreants for this aggressive body now puts me in the position where the Sprite is not countering things that I need to counter. Land drop from my opponent. Chat, we are cooked, as the children say. My opponent has all of these cantripping bodies. My opponent has flash creatures. My opponent has things that punish standstill. I am not a fan of this. So I think for Sprite purposes, I'm going to put this body in play. This does not feel good. We are maybe not having a good time here. God, everything is flash. Force of Negation misses this. Sprite misses this. I don't have removal for this. Yeah, my opponent's deck is like the antithesis of what I want to be playing against here. It's big. That's counterable with the Force of Negation. Yeah. Sprite misses this. This is a damage report situation. Yeah, that's kind of what I thought. I think at this point I'm willing to just concede the game. Like, my standstills don't get me back into this. My flyers don't get through this. I'm probably enough lands that this doesn't matter. And even if I get this online, the Death Touchers are a problem. I think I'm done so. So, I think I need this stuff. My Force of Negation is not great. My X1 creatures aren't the best either. I don't think we're trying to cheese this one with Harbinger of the Seas. I imagine that my 62. I need to cut cards. Yeah. I imagine that my opponent's deck is going to improve more than my own deck is, which is quite unfortunate. Actually, let's do this, despite the fact that this is a Bowmaster deck. That change might not have gone through. Okay, so this is about the best possible hand that I could have. This attempts to put a threat in play and then stand still. Preferably, my opponent does not play a creature on turn 1. I could counter this, but then I can't stand still immediately. I think I let Dryad Arbor slip into play. I think that's okay. So now we stand still, and I think I am okay being the aggressor in this situation. And we'll see if my opponent wants to just crack the standstill immediately or make a bunch of land drops. Okay, so I draw some cards. I am okay Force of Willing. I don't really need Lorien revealed right now. Alright, no Dryad Arbor attack, which is weird to me. Could Vapor Snag that. I think I am going to have better uses of Vapor Snag later, though. 18. So now we live the dream, we stand still again. Excuse me. And we just continue to see if my opponent is just going to keep cracking these standstills, or if they are going to wait things out. Alright, they are cracking that. There's another Force of Will. I think I am down for. What am I pitching? The Daze? Probably the Daze. Fantastic. I will take one. I'm going to save this Vapor Snag for something better. Alright. So, this is the one that I want to animate. So this one is newly controlled. So, add mana, make into a Deuter, crash in for 3. Opponent is at 14. I have Counterspell available. I have 2 different bounce spells available. We Counterspell if my opponent taps out for something big or something with an ETB trigger. Otherwise, I would prefer to just invest my mana other ways. Alright, we're chilling. Sprite. I think I'm just attacking for 1 this turn. I don't know what it is, but there's some sort of trap over there. Alright, opponent is at 12. Passes the turn. Old Breacher. I'll just bounce that. That's fine. Arrakis is fine. Plague Engineer is very much not fine. That's going to get an actual factual counterspell. Alright, no attacks from my opponent. Vapor Snag not super effective here. Yeah, this is fine. I would be okay trading a factory for a Hull Breacher. So let's fire this up and send these in. Alright, opponent takes it. They are at 9. I have 1 to 2 spells available depending on what exactly my opponent does. Alright, no attacks. We're chilling. Yeah, we're chilling. This kind of gets better and better for me as I draw more land. I think I just want to have the maximum amount of blue available. Send in with this. Ice Fang Coatl. That eats a Sprite. So, yeah. Counter that. 2 fairies. Petty Theft. I don't super want to drop Counterspell, but I think it's fine. I have Vapor Snag and Brazen Borrower. Alright, opponent takes 3, is down to 6. Hopefully there's no hellacious top deck. Nice, a land. That is very good for me. Yeah, okay. So, factory. Yeah. Alright, so those are our ideal circumstances. We're on the play, we get 2 standstills. We can win when the games look like that. So, I don't have a standstill. I'm on the draw. I have a reasonable mix of lands and spells, but I don't know that this hand is great. I think I'm really going to struggle with hands that do not have standstill, but I don't think I can just mulligan to standstill every single game. So we're going to try to keep this. Green Sun is happening. I think we are playing Fairy Miscreant so that I have Flare of Denial available. My opponent's flash creatures are going to make this game pretty tricky. They also just have like Leovolds and Hull Breachers that shut off standstill, so we have some conceptual problems. I don't think I get to let stuff like this resolve. So we take the 2-for-1 on Baleful Strix. It doesn't feel great. I think we've just got to do it. Go to 19. I don't get the cantrip off of that. Land drop? All right, no Dryad Arbor action there. Extra counterspell is fine. I think I'm going to go ahead and put this in play. It's just awkward, like Bowmasters is a thing that exists, but I need to use mana to get these into play so that Spellstutter sprites and such become better in the future. That's going to resolve, and I'll just Vapor Snag that in a minute. I don't think that's worth countering. My graveyard doesn't do anything. The 3 damage is probably not the end of the world. Whereas these cantripping fuckers. Gotta say no to those. I don't understand my opponent not making attacks. Like, that has been very, very beneficial for me. Like, I think I am very clearly the control in this matchup, even though I don't want to be, and my opponent is the beatdown. Yeah, they're missing so much damage, which I am thankful for. Vapor Snag, a little awkward versus flash creatures. I think I'm going to hold out on a little while. Yeah, that's much better. Fantastic. We do that now? I can do my poke for 1? Yeah. Although it might be an attack for more, for more than that. I think I'm just going to fetch now, so there's no awkwardness with opposition agent later. Actually, does it make sense? I won't have both Vapor Snag and Counterspell available for this if I make that attack. Maybe I just attack for 1. Send it. It is another Endurance, which I guess I am counterspelling. Opponent's at 18. And this is where I need like a standstill type card. I just need that card advantage, or stuff like this is going to start resolving. Oh, fuck. That's bad. That's very, very bad. Fuck. Alright. Hate that. Yep. So now I can bounce something. But that doesn't feel great. Let's try to dig our way out of this. Factory is a thing. I'm going to try to do better than that. Well, my opponent has cast spells every time that I've dropped a standstill. So let's pray that that trend continues. Ooh, yeah. No bueno. So we're dead? I imagine we're dead. That's fine. We'll see what that goes on. It might just be Fairy again. Yeah. Just no Dryad Arbor attacks ever. I'm now going to hold this back defensively. I don't know exactly how much damage my opponent has missed this game, and maybe some of the time they were actually leaving up something relevant, but there have been a lot of like Dryad Arbor and Endurance attacks that did not actually happen. My Daze doesn't do me any good here. Leovold is bad news. Yeah, that is a decision you are legally allowed to make. It is not going to matter. I think I am dead. But my opponent missed a minimum of 1 and likely 3 damage there. This says Death Touch. I can trade with this. I am at 12. Okay. That's a thing. You reach? No. Ward. Sure. Bowmaster not doing it. As far as Daze is concerned. Now I can't draw cards, and if I could, they would be hurting me. We are also probably reaching the point where my opponent can just turn all of their creatures sideways and attack through Factory, and it just doesn't matter. I think I'm just going to concede. I think this is very clearly over in my opponent's favor. GG's.
Today's video is sponsored by Moxfield.com, and honestly, they're just the best at what they do. If you need to keep your deck lists online, this is the way to do it. They have all sorts of different viewing options. You can condense that text if you like things to be tight. You can make them visual grids. You can put them in stacks. You've got all sorts of different ways to kind of view and visualize your deck lists. And they also have some really cool functionality, like allowing you to see playtest hands and even fully playtest your decks. So check them out.
So this is a little awkward. I have a reasonable hand that has an ETB tapped land. So if my opponent wastelands his first land, I do not play Magic. And my Flare of Denial doesn't work until I cast this first card. I could risk it for the biscuit, and then everyone in the comments can tag me like, non-basic lands are good when I get wastelanded off of this. I have 19. Oh, it's not really 19 though, is it? Because 4 of these are colorless. Yeah, I actually don't have the best chance of just naturally drawing an untapped blue source for this next turn. I'm gonna mulligan. Hey, this is much better. So we're gonna keep this. I think I'm going to get rid of the ETB tapped land here. I would like another island or counterspell that can potentially wait a little while. Ponder's fine. So there is a good chance that this is just going to be a tempo deck list. We're not going to know for sure for a little while. There are other things that this could be, such as Show and Tell. Misty Rainforest. Ponder is again fine. And we're chilling. I think I am just jamming Standstill into this. Yeah. Yeah, I think we're just jamming Standstill. Without the ability to be holding up actual factual counterspell here because I don't have blue. Oh, shit, it just happened. That's nice. Isn't that nice, everyone? Show and tell. Okay. I will draw some cards. Woohoo! The dazes are almost exciting. I only have one island, so only one of these dazes is live. So, if my opponent goes like Show and Tell with Force of Will backup, or equivalent, I'm not the best versus that. Once I untap, I am much, much more confident in my ability to stave off this combo. All right, there is the Show and Tell, which I am obviously going to Force of Will. I think I am pitching one daze here. The second daze is not super strong, so I can't pay. Dazing this Show and Tell doesn't make the most sense. If my opponent has Sneak Attack, they can still activate Sneak Attack once, even if I daze this. So I think I am letting this resolve and hoping to Brazen Borrower the thing out of play with a counterspell backup. So my opponent is thinking hard here, which is weird. All right, they have made their choice. I am putting an island. It is Sneak Attack. So there is the activation. This would have happened even if we dazed. There is an Archon of Cruelty. I get rid of Daze, maybe? Is there a secondary creature? Because if there's a secondary creature, I could have stopped that by dazing. So this is going to be 9 damage. I'm getting rid of Counterspell. I'll take 6. Archon gets sacrificed. There is a Brazen Borrower. We're going to start this off by bouncing the Sneak Attack. We are now going to attempt to make it so that when my opponent redeploys Sneak Attack, I can Spell Pierce it successfully. Again? Fucking stop! I have to Spell Pierce that. That did cost a Lotus Petal, though. We got that going for us. I can, in theory, clock pretty hard. So we don't want to see Soul Land at this point. Soul Land is very scary. I don't know why we are fetching on end step specifically. You are allowed to do that on your own end step. Seems weird, but that is a legal play. We're firing this up. We're getting in for 5. And I am hoping for a tap out Sneak Attack that I just bounce with Brazen Borrower. Fuck! That is not good. So I can bounce that, and I am going to, so that my opponent doesn't draw cards. I'm going to hope to draw a counterspell to counter that. That and the Sneak Attack are both problems. Hopefully I can just rely on my deck drawing counterspells. Notably, there was a Mystic Sanctuary in the first draft of this deck that I took out because I thought we were going to have trouble just having the islands to activate it with the Mishras, Factories, and Wastelands and such. So let's find a counterspell. Daze is a counterspell. Believe? I'm going to draw that Standstill. Now, I can take Daze, which some portion of the time is not good enough, or I can fetch and clear. There is also whether or not I am attacking with Mishra's Factory this turn. I think I am going to do this, attack in for 3, and I can decide whether or not Daze is good enough when my opponent's card goes on the stack. I am working so hard. All right, so Daze is no longer good enough. All right, there's the 1 ring. So since Daze isn't good enough, I will now shuffle, grab an island, Standstill trigger. Fuck. Yeah. Can't even cast my Brazen Borrower right now. That's bad. Cloud of Fairies not looking hot here. Guess this is fine tapped. Oh fuck, this has not flash. Yeah? Okay. So I could have done this turn better by cycling before playing the land drop. But I do sometimes want to attack with that next turn. So no attack due to the One Ring. Yeah, the power differential between Standstill and the One Ring is pretty staggering. Huddle's fine. My soft counter spells are slowly getting worse. Another fetch. So we are going to attempt to counterspell this. Yeah. I think that is probably the end here. There's the sneak attack. That's an Atraxa. So that doesn't literally kill me. That is just the ability to Atraxa again. I think at this point I can go ahead and concede the game. I may or may not literally die this turn, but with my opponent gaining that 7 life, I don't think I have the ability to just clock them from here. The One Ring plus their hand is overwhelming at this stage. So, we can Force of Negation and Spell Pierce as additional interaction, and honestly, I might Null Rod because the One Ring is so good against me. I don't think Harbinger of the Seas makes sense. And I think if the creature gets in play, we've lost. So I think I'm not going to board Vapor Snag. I think the conceptual plan is win with 1 Brazen Borrower at some point. I think Cloud of Fairies is going to go, and I think some number of Fairy Miscreants are going to go. That'll make my Flare of Denials worse, but I'm just boarding in a bunch more counter spells. I know that I have a giant pile of counter spells here, but this is hopefully fine. I don't know that I have enough counter magic in my deck, and I realize that this is an absurd thing to say, to counter all of my opponent's targets. If they have show and tells and sneak attacks and the One Ring that I all need to counter, that's a lot. Ponder is fine. We are not attacking cards like that. I am hoping to stick a Standstill on turn 2. Wasteland is kind of whatever as a draw. Okay, Standstill's in play. Now, last time my opponent just cast their payoff card directly into my Standstill, and it worked for them. Ooh, fantastic. I'm going to play out blue sources early here. It's possible that if Misty is in play at end of turn and I'm not showing Wasteland, that's fine. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, you can have that. I will just discard. Anyway, that I could end up wastelanding this, but I think I am now just discarding Wasteland. This is fine. Feel weird about Wasteland. I think I don't care about it. I'm hoping to use some of the soft permission in the next turn or so, and if I don't use them, they can turn into pitch cards for these. I think this is the first time that it's come up. But a lot of times it is optimal if you are playing against Standstill to do something in your opponent's end step. I don't care. Wait, Mishra's Factory is kind of my primary win condition. It's a little hard for me to just follow up with a Standstill if I don't counter or otherwise answer that. All right. I'm going to try to use kind of a crappy counter spell on that and hope that that works. Now I can't Spell Pierce. I can't Daze either. So I guess we are going to Force of Negation, pitching a Daze, and then just hope to let that stack resolve and stand still. Cool. So we do this Song and Dance again. The Magus of the Moon very much feels like a bait card, though. So my opponent successfully got me to use resources on that. Now we're going to play Draw-Go for a little while, which hopefully favors me, although it might not. Sneak attack. All right, I'm going to be Force of Willing that. Probably just pitching a Sprite. Under is not the best either, though. If I put this into play at some point, then Flare of Denial becomes live. I'm thinking about just putting this into play as a 1/1 attacker. I think I'm going to do that, oddly. Don't really want the second Null Rod. First one's fine. Oh? Yeah, no, that's fine. That was 2 cards. We're going to shut off the One Ring so I don't need to counter that, and then drop a third Standstill. we have a guaranteed force of will for if my opponent tries to jam a win condition immediately. And they don't. So now we start playing draw go, and hopefully I accumulate enough resources to stop my opponent's next attempt. Ooh, just cracking immediately. You may not ponder, apparently. I wasn't planning on countering that, but I'll take it. Okay, good enough for a concession. Do I want outs to Magus of the Moon so that I do not have to counter it? Not really. Do I have to do it? It's not a blue card for pitching to all of my various counterspells, which is a really big deal when I already have a couple of things like Null Rod that aren't blue. And I know that's kind of absurd to say, because I probably have like 40 blue cards in here. But when you start having to randomly draw cards off Standstill and you need some of them to be blue, and your lands don't count and your Null Rods don't count, like, you do have a decent miss chance. I think I am not going to board in Dismember for Magus. I could board a Vapor Snag, but I do want to keep a couple of small fairy bodies around for Flare of Denial. Yeah, this is great. So just like in terms of ratio here, roughly half of my hand does not pitch to the 2 blue counters that I have. And if there is a Dismember in this hand, rather than one of these blue cards, I have 1 active counterspell instead of 2 active counterspells. And, ooh, on some turns, I will also have this Spell Pierce up, depending on kind of what I choose to do with the Null Rod. Opponent is doing this at slightly strange times. If they follow this up with a Ponder immediately, it's fine. I'm not going to counter that. Yeah, so that could have been Ponder, Fetch, Clear, Thundering Falls afterwards. But it was not this game. I think I am not casting Null Rod immediately. I think it is too important to have Spell Pierce available in the short term. I think I am comfortable casting Null Rod on 3 mana. Pierce? That seems like a reasonable Pierce. It's not taking a payoff card. It is not the best. Fairy Miscreant is probably Force of Will fodder. So I have Force of Negation, pitch a card, I have Force of Will, pitch a card, and I have Daze beyond that. I think I am going to go ahead and cast a Null Rod. Ancient Tomb. 5 mana. Alright, now we're fighting. So I'm going to Force of Negation, pitching Fairy Miscreant there. It indeed resolves. That's great. Sprite's an okay draw. If my opponent does not do anything, I can put a 3-power clock in play, which is actually real because my opponent has tapped multiple Ancient Tombs multiple times. My Daze is probably Force of Will fodder at this point. Another one? And notice that both times my opponent has tapped leaving up red. I think they have 2 creatures in hand. I'm going to Force of Will pitching Daze here, with the hope that I can then play Brazen Borrower. Lusterstorm. 3 copies? 3 open mana? Yes. 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 Okay. I don't know what you expected there. I'm going to assume that they miscounted. So land drop for me. Pass the turn. I think they have 2 creatures in hand. So I imagine my opponent is just passing the turn here. And now we just hope that I can clock them. Oh, that's so good. That's a hard counter spell when I think my opponent has garbage in hand. Okay. So Sprite is lethal damage. So despite the fact that this is a perfectly fine and live card, I think I am just playing that to attack my opponent for lethal. Boo! It does not make sense to Flare of Denial that. Okay. That's unfortunate. Kill you next turn. Opponent's at 3. My read on this situation is that my opponent has 2 creatures in hand. I think I am right on that read. My opponent tapped in a way that indicated that multiple turns in a row. So I am going to take what I presume is deterministic lethal by playing Brazen Borrower and attacking for 3. Ooh! Had the right read on the situation there. I think my opponent had some slight wiggle room to play differently. They maybe could have used Pyroblast on the Flusterstorm turn if they had that as well. They maybe could have held the Fluster in an attempt to back something up later. They could have pondered rather than Thundering Falls and then pondered. There were different decisions to be had in that game. Regardless, GG's, and we are on the board with Standstill. All right, no land here equals auto mulligan. This is fine. I think we are on Island, Ponder, look for Standstill, Bin, Flare of Denial, or my mulligan. I think that is my conceptual plan. Opponent has mulliganed as well. All right, my opponent tanked for a little while on their mulligan, so something is a little bit tough over there. Tamiyo is a great Magic the Gathering card. It's not the Standstill I want, but it might be the source of card advantage that I am getting. Let's bury Factory here, leave Tamiyo on top, and draw a Ponder. I can Ponder to shuffle next turn and try to find a counter spell to back up the blue creatures that I have. Sort of comically, I'm actually bad against combo with this hand, despite the fact that I have a gajillion counter spells in my deck. Basic Island from the other side of the battlefield. I think I am going to Ponder now. Oh no. We will shuffle all of those lands. Okay, there's the counter spell that I want. And I don't really have enough information to know whether or not I should Force of Will to back up Tamiyo. Like, I don't know if this is control. I don't know if this is going to be another show and tell deck. I don't know if this is just going to be a tempo deck and my opponent is going to daze. But I am currently leaning towards Force if my opponent interacts with this card. Force pitching Spell Pierce. Control? I'm going to force back. I'm going to pitch my Brazen Borrower and then leave up casting this and cracking clues. Really awkward if this is like a blue-white control deck list and my opponent just drops a removal spell. That gets under this. Say Livy. Let's get some clues. So my opponent naturally had Island, did not fetch for it, naturally had it. Could be a mono blue Delver deck. Could be like a 2-color Delver deck. It's probably not going to be something like Grixis. Ambush Viper? Ooh, I think Ambush Viper worked. Hell yeah. I was fully not expecting that to happen. Mono blue Delver? Okay. I have another Wasteland. In case Stifle is a thing, I'm going to go ahead and fetch at sorcery speed. So let's do this and then pass. I'll probably crack a clue token at their end step. If they put something meaningful on the stack, I can draw towards daze. Sure. It's a little frustrating here. Like, my opponent has a window to play this before I draw extra cards. There's maybe a reason to sorcery speed this. Would not have mattered this time. Cloud of Faeries. I'm just gonna cycle that. This 1/1 bot. Well, yeah, the 1/1 body doesn't matter that. Does. Junk that. Ask this. Hope my opponent doesn't do anything cool. This keeps the Brazen Borrower from attacking, although honestly Tamiyo already might have been doing that. I untap my islands. I'll pass the turn. Ponder is fine. So my issue here is that my opponent is probably playing like Murktide Regents in addition to fucking Spellbelly Whale, whatever it's called, Ethereal Forager. So at some point, my opponent is just going to find large creatures where if I don't have a counterspell for them immediately, it is problematic for me. And the brakes have been pumped on my Tamiyo. Yeah. So like, I think Preordained is a very strong indicator that there's more than normal delve density in this deck. That's not great. I'm going to send in with Cloud of Fairies. If Brazen Borrower attacks, Tamiyo can attack. And that is an exchange that I think is favorable for me. But I need a counterspell, and I need it right now. Yeah, no, the Brazen Borrower is not attacking. That makes sense to me. This is fine to good. So now I ponder. Ooh, you're a wizard? So, yeah, yeah, yeah. No shuffle. Yeah. Combat. Send in with Tamiyo. My opponent can block. I'm going to crack the clue to turn Tamiyo into a super sexy planeswalker. Crack the clue. Yeah. That's third card drawn. Now we have Force of Will backing this up. I have a creature back for Brazen Borrower. Now we start doing this thing. All right, good stuff. So now I have Force of Will for the large, like, Ethereal Forager or whatever that would come down. I do not believe that I can touch that card with Sprite. Like, if I counter that Brainstorm and my opponent already has a Delve card in hand, feels like GG. All right, so now the Brazen Borrower is going to come in. Tamiyo will make it smaller. Still totally fine with tradesies there. Fantastic. Let's try this. Yeah, that is fine. That is something that I knew could be a possibility there. The disaster case is second land drop followed by Delve creature. That didn't happen, so that's nice. I can minus the Tamiyo, and then the Delver kills it a decent portion of the time. Might be fine with that. But I think I'm just gonna plus Tamiyo. Sometimes the Delver doesn't even flip this turn. Two honest to goodness mono blue decks, living in the moment. Spell Pierce. Okay, opponent does not want it though, which makes sense. With this many lands, Spell Pierce shouldn't be relevant anymore. It would, given that I have exactly Force of Will, but it shouldn't be that relevant. Now, hopefully we just kind of chill with Tamiyo for a little while. So it's the next threat that starts to potentially be a problem. I have a counter spell for that. So Tamiyo takes 2 on the attack, but is plussing for 2 loyalty. So this isn't actually getting my opponent anywhere. Yeah, that's fine. Oddly. Right? Hold on. What if the Delver starts attacking me? I just ultimate Tamiyo? Yeah, no, that's okay. It is very strange to play Standstill into onboard creature. Yeah, I don't like that. Don't like that at all. This is a really good daze. Yeah. Oh, this is not great. Now there is a Standstill in play that might be detrimental to me. I need a man land. Quickly. Alright, and these are going at Tamiyo. So Tamiyo is going to start losing loyalty. This daze is not good. Can't minus Tamiyo for value. I think I have lost to my own Standstill. Because this is going to be 4 damage even after the Tamiyo triggers. Maybe I got greedy in playing the Standstill. Flare of Denial not doing it. My opponent's not going to put anything on the stack. Like, they will just attack me for 5 repeatedly. Yep. And this now means that my best way of clocking my opponent is not live. I would have to wasteland their wasteland before playing something like a Hall of the Storm Giant. I think at this point I can go ahead and tap out. That was a great game. That just eventually slipped away from us. Do we board in Harbinger of Seas for the island mirror? Maybe not. I did not see them. I think the Delve threats are there. I think Vapor Snag is fine against those. I think Dismember is fine. Spell Pierce is playable. Force of Negation is not really the best here. I can probably go down on that. Cloud of Fairies can matter for Brazen Borrower specifically, but otherwise it is kind of unimpressive. Sprite still has plenty of 1-drop targets in that deck. And maybe down 1 Pierce. This is a fine mix of lands and spells. It does not have a source of card advantage, which is, I think, something that I need. But I don't think I get 2 mulligan hands that look like this. Conceptually, yes. I want to have 2 mana available for my next turn. Daze is a little frustrating here. Yeah, not happy about that. Try to stop that. And this is where I just need the Standstill or the Tamiyo as a follow-up to these situations. And I don't have it. It feels like when we are firing on all cylinders, the deck is great. And when it's not, we run out of resources just so quickly. Like, it is turn 3, and I am just already feeling the pressure. Having Force of Willed one thing, the secondary Force of Will that's in my hand is not particularly strong here. Probably can't immediately fire up Factory. Well, this is what I needed. Your Brainstorm is happening. I will respond to a counterspell. A second Brainstorm. That's only going to dig one deeper. It may be filling the graveyard, though. Hot damn, Standstill in play. That is great for me. My opponent is going to have 7 cards to my 3 cards. They will probably just cast a spell immediately and crack this Standstill. Yep, makes sense to me. Those are cards. Notably, those are all 4 Force of Wills. Wasteland is great for my opponent. I'm going to keep things like Spell Pierce relevant. That's fine. What if I just drew another Standstill off the top? Huh? What if? I think I want 2-drop around Daze more than I want to get the tapped land out of the way here. Land drop from opponent. Here's our first Delve spell in all likelihood. Alright, that is a Murktide Regent. There are notably some instants and sorceries left in the graveyard here. This was not trying to grow this Murktide Regent as much as humanly possible. I am going to try to 1-for-1 here. Sometimes this walks into a Spell Pierce, but I think there is just going to be another Murktide Regent coming in another turn cycle or so. And I can Brazen Borrower that one. I can let that resolve and then fight over it with Force of Will. I'm gonna attempt to take this value after I board out some number of smaller fairies. This becomes more awkward. My opponent has Dazed. I mean, I'll pay. So my Sprite got Daze and Ponder. And if my opponent is trying to use this as a time to resolve Murktide Regent, I am just going to Brazen Borrower it with Force of Will backup on my turn. I think my opponent was trying to get me to tap out, but it's not actually going to accomplish what they wanted to accomplish. Ooh, fuck yeah. 2-mana version first, I think? Okay, yeah, it's out of the way. I attack for 1. I have Brazen Borrower in the not-too-distant future. So you're telling me there's a chance. Holy shit. Absolutely fucking not. Get out of here. No. This card, pretty good against control decks, historically. I've got some tough choices regarding this Lorien revealed. 18. I am very close to this just reasonably being 3 cards. I think accordingly I hold it. But it's also very good to make that additional land drop to work towards Force of Will being hard castable. No play from my opponent. Let's try to Brazen Borrower. We know one of their cards is Murktide Regent. I'm just going to attack first. Spend them. A Dismember. That's fine. Threats are very replaceable. Let's ponder. Counterspell is fine. Vapor Snag is okay. I am going to leave myself the potential of drawing Vapor Snag. If my opponent plays a creature that's bounceable, I will draw Vapor Snag. Otherwise, I am just going to shuffle that. It means that I'm not making my land drop on my own turn. I think that's okay. If I don't shuffle, I am not hard casting that Lorien revealed for a little while anyway. And in. Opponent's at 12. Land drop. Land drop. Is it sad Murktide Regent time? It is sad Murktide Regent time, which I am just going to Vapor Snag out of play. Yeah. Boop. I can counterspell back this up if I need to. I would prefer not to. Opponent is at 9. Factory. Factory's not bad. I'm at 5 of 6 mana needed to attack needed to get in with this 7/7 friend. Although it's a little awkward for me to tap out for that attack right now. I'm into that. Take your time. Are we fighting? I think we're fighting. What you got? It is a counterspell. Okay. A lot of resources were exchanged there. So now I am just trying to end this game, which I'm hoping all of the Storm Giants will do. I know that my opponent could play a Murktide Regent, but it's probably not going to be a 7/7 or bigger. That is fine. Like, we can make that trade. And my opponent is going to do that because, like, they are at 5 life now. So my opponent's final card is Murktide Regent, plus 1 unknown draw for turn. I have a 7/7 attacker with Ward 3. Hot damn, we get there. We are rewarded with another game, though. Opponent has Spell Snares. Very good against my standstills and counterspells and sprites. Less so versus Daze. Do I want an additional Spell Pierce? Spell Pierce might be better than Flare of Denial in a lot of cases. But I do, excuse me, just need some hard counter spells for True Name Nemesis, and ultimately for the Delve threats. I was able to Vapor Snag and bounce a couple of times this game, but that's not always going to be the case. I think I am going to go up one Spell Pierce, though. I'm going to hope this is fine. So we would love to see Ponder. A Delver is scarier here. Yeah, that's great. And I am going to need to do something on my turn to secure land drop number 2. I think that's likely Cycling Lorien Revealed. Ooh. Okay. I'm into that. That is a problem card. 2 mana from opponent and pass turn. That is great for me. That is also great for me. I'm going to go ahead and send in. Now, I could just play my Standstill here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I would go up to 8 cards. I would likely discard if my opponent just cracks it immediately. I think I'm just going to leave up like Cracking Clue, Cycling Lorien Revealed, all that stuff. Fairy Vandal. Whenever you draw your second card each turn, put a +1/+1 counter on it. Greg, I think you missed Fairy Vandal. That could be a reasonable thing to put in this deck in the place of Cloud of Fairies, which has been unimpressive. I don't think I respond to that immediately. I think I'm going to end up dismembering it. But I don't think I have to respond to it immediately. I think I want to leave up Sprite for my opponent's turn. Now they are incentivized to play a cantrip to trigger this. Yeah, Exhibit A. Which means that I get to attempt to do something that looks like this and get my own value. That's all fine. This is not worth Force of Willing over. And this is in both turn cycles, by the way. It's each turn, not like your own turn or anything. That can be strong. I will take 2. Hitting extra land drops naturally is great. So let's go and get our clue. Then I think I am into attempting to remove the threat. And I think I'm into this. I don't think I fight. I just have a Tamiyo in play. I don't think that's worth Force of Will. I have a 5-card hand with some extra steps. I think it's just too important to be able to force like True Name Nemesis or Murktide Regent. Like so. Nice. Sure. Ooh. I will keep accumulating clues. I'm going to start with Ponder. I would like to find a pitch counter spell here. Lair of Denial, I guess, counts. That's not the best set of 3 cards, though. I think I'm going to shuffle that. That's better. Let's fire off a Standstill. We have a response. Could be a hard cast Daze or something. It is a Fairy Vandal. That is annoying. I think I will just draw a land and Tamiyo that thing out of existence. Draw some cards. Turns into a Planeswalker, which is awkward if that is 2 power. So even though this Ponder is not very good, I think I have to do that. And then hope the last card is not a cantrip. And then hopefully I just bury my opponent with these clue tokens that I've been accumulating all game. Fuck. Donde está Vapor Snag? Always plussing that. Always cracking a clue token. Oh, that's not great. That's not great. We'll see where these both go. Ooh, no Fairy Vandal attack. Unfortunately, Murktide Regent is going to kill Tamiyo. So I crack clue token. Not the best timing for Standstill. Let's start digging for an answer to Murktide Regent. None of those are going to do that. Got like 5 cards we're digging towards. Crack a clue token. Okay, that is what I want. I don't think I get to wait a turn here. Let's remove this in my opponent's upkeep. This is spell pierceable right now. I just don't think I can take 6. And we'll see how ridiculous this turn cycle can get for my opponent. This gets a +1/+1 counter. Every counter is hyper relevant right now. I'm at 9. Fuck. I think I literally can never beat that card once it has resolved. I just don't have anything that takes that out of play. So I would need to kill my opponent next turn. That does not seem possible. None of that does anything. Shuffle. Reponder. None of that does anything. Yeah, no, this... I'm just going to check. I have no way to beat a True Name Nemesis. That's just not something you do in Mono Blue if it sticks. Yeah, and I don't have like Murktide Regent into Murktide Regent to have any chance at doing 16. GG's. Great game of Magic. Not often that you see two mono blue decks square off against each other. Alright, my opponent has mulligan to 5. Assuming I get a land drop or 2, I have a decent anti-combo hand, but I don't have anything for turn 1. So it's possible we just lose to, like, Necro Dominance. Yep. Alright, so let's see if their deck loses to itself. It legitimately does happen sometimes. They will draw 19 cards, and if they are playing a proper Necro Dominance deck, and not something like the weirdo version I was doing with Ancient Cellar Spawns, then they can just play Born Upon a Wind, which they did, which now they can cast their spells as though they had Flash, and it should be trivial for them to win from here. Alright, we got a couple of rituals, and then Tendrils. And this was just a literal, like, play versus draw thing, where if we win the die roll and we get to days, we're good. That didn't happen. I might even Null Rod here. Null Rod is not fantastic, but it's something, and that something might be what we're looking for. Board Cloud of Fairies out. I can honestly probably go down some standstills. It's less important for me to have the second wave of counter spells if I just board in this many more. I suppose I could also somewhat reasonably board down or out Wasteland. My opponent has mulligan to 3. I have 2 different pitch spells here, plus sprites, which are fine. Duress is fine. The Wasteland on Vault is reasonable. I will probably do that immediately given the resources that my opponent is on. Yeah, that's fair. I think I'm just going to whack the submit button and hope for the best. Our opponent mulliganed to 3 that time. That was just probably not worth playing out from their point of view. All right, my opponent has kept their 7, which is a sign of strength here. My Flare of Denial is not immediately online. This one is a mulligan. I just need a pitch counter spell when I am on the draw, unfortunately. After my opponent has kept 7 specifically. This is a hand that I would be perfectly fine with keeping on the play, but not on the draw. Yeah, no, this is fine. I might be getting rid of Mishra's Factory here. It's not blue-blue for Counterspell and Friends. I think I am keeping 3 pitch counterspells and a blue card here. Battle. Dark Ritual. We're going to go after the Necro itself here. I think I pitch Counterspell. I'm not guaranteed to be able to cast that with only 1 blue land here. A Pact of Negation. Let's allow Pact of Negation to resolve. Then we will force a negation that. Now my opponent is going to lose to their own pact. I am a skilled magician navigating the combo matchup. Yeah, turns out if you have 4 pitch counter spells versus the all-in combo deck, you win. Okay. I think this has enough going for it that I will keep this. It has the Cloud of Fairies, which has been unimpressive. Don't love seeing that on the other side of the table as a start. Don't have a Wasteland to help out with that immediately. That is also not Wasteland. I'm going to Ponder, and my ideal Ponder has Island and Wasteland. That was Island and Brazen Borrower. Probably good enough. Yeah. No Shuffle. Hopefully there's not Ancient Tomb. It's a lot to ask for, but hopefully it's not there. Damn it. Oh, shit. We get a chance to counter that. That's a really big deal. Cloud of Fairies isn't doing anything. That was greedy on my opponent's end. Like, now they are not making an Urza Saga token with that. This is not bad. This is not bad at all. I'm going to hold up Brazen Borrower Bounce for Urza's Saga token. It's possible that Lava Spur Boots are coming. And I might need to remove the creature this turn before it gets ward. Mox Opal instead. I'm going to try to get cheeky here. I'm going to go ahead and Petty Theft this Construct token out of play and hope that my opponent does not float mana so that I can daze. Oh! No Metalcraft! No Metalcraft! Yes! It got. Oh! You're a blue deck! Shit! Yeah, and they realized it in chat. All right. Alice occurs. So my opponent has Displacer Kitten combo and potentially like Teferi as well. Let's all never mind the fact that Urza Saga is a card that exists in my opponent's deck, okay? Let's just completely ignore the fact that Urza Saga exists and play Standstill. Oh, I'm just getting my cards immediately. Fantastic. So, this colored mana, it's wild. They just cracked it to play Lotus Petal. That feels wrong. I think I'm just going to pass the turn. I have 3 copies of Brazen Borrower. I am just going to cast them and kill my opponent. I'll interact if I have to. Oh? This is going to be some Whir of Invention shit? What the fuck is this? Paradoxical Outcome. This is why they cracked. But they let me untap, which means that I can just hard counterspell this. I do not believe that I'm interested in Wastelanding. I just have very good things to do with my mana, and I'm just going to drag all of these 1-drops to the left. Alright, we are chilling. I don't need to cast these 1-drops, so let's just start dropping Brazen Borrowers until people are dying. Counterspell is fantastic. There's slightly more tension on it because my opponent has Paradoxical Outcome. Oh? Honestly, I almost want to let it resolve. This feels like bait, but if I'm wrong, it's pretty bad. I am fine with doing a Petty Theft on Chalice of the Void so that I can play a 1-drop on my own turn. Ooh. Yeah? Opponent is at 7. I believe that I am going to play Fairy Miscreant and then pass. This leaves up 7 power, or if my opponent does nothing, or it leaves up a Sprite for X equals 3. Okay. You have protection from everything. I could bounce this, not have them draw any cards. I guess there's Voltaic Key. Awkward. Okay. There's a new city. I could bounce it now and attempt to counter it on the way back down. I think I am going to do that. I have Ponder to look for extra cards. And I also just have it if I draw a land. I can play a Brazen Borrower and then a Sprite. Right, I did not. So we get a couple of Ponders to look. Sprite? Does it? Oh, but I can't get Island and Sprite there and still have 4 mana, so we'll shuffle. It's Sprite anyway. Let's re-dig for something. Days? 1, 2, 3, 4. Is Days good enough? Let's hope Days is good enough. I'll wasteland that City of Traders. I'll play Tameo, which I could have flipped if I did this turn slightly differently. No land, no land, no land, no land. Nice. Days, Bounce Island, Lethal. Okay, that's the GG in chat. Ooh, close one. Note that I say close one here. Like, I realized that I was still at a very, very high life total, but one ring decks can just really go wild if unchecked. Okay, so I can play Harbinger of the Seas to mess with my opponent's mana and stop Urza Saga as an alternative win condition. But I think a lot of this stuff is going to be more important. I'm going to board out Cloud of Fairies like I've done pretty much every round. The sprites are a little wonky on the draw. They can hit some keys and stuff, but they're not hitting the show and tell type cards a good portion of the time. I could really go down on the fairy stuff and just try to win this game with 3 copies of Brazen Borrower. I think that is an 11 for an 11. We take the fairy out of our FaerieStill. Oh, okay, so that's an 11 for an 11, but this is 56 cards. So let's reimagine this a little bit. I need to keep some fairies then. Sprites for keys and Moxen. Keep a couple fairies and a few Flare of Denials that I can just hardcast on rings and stuff in the mid game. Could try to do things like Dismember for Cat or Vapor Snag for Cat. Let's play Sprites. At worst, they're blue cards for my pitch counter spells. Alright, I am going to imagine that Null Rod backed by Force of Will is fantastic. Now, my opponent presumably has Displacer, Kitten, Teferi combo in their deck. I didn't see the Teferi in that game, but I'm going to assume that it is there. Yes, that resolves. That resolves. These cards are getting shut off by a Null Rod another turn down the line. Null Rod, Tamiyo, a notable legacy combo. We'll flip the Tamiyo eventually. It'll be fine. Don't mind that as a draw. Is the Tamiyo ever my Force of Will pitch card over these other things? It might be. Honestly, it might be. Oh, that feels weird. I think it's right. Monolith is fine. Yeah, you can untap that all day. Nice, nice. So, this is at minimum a 3-for-1. I will Force of Will to protect this. Didn't have to. Nice. Have Harbinger of the Seas for Urza Saga next. Oh, no, friend. In a land from deck? That doesn't seem like it matters. Harbinger. Hot damn, everything's resolving. We're eating good. Oh, that was a fast GG. That means we went positive this league, right? Wow, I'm super happy with this. All right, Greg, we did it. All right. Overall thoughts on the deck list. I think it's a good news, bad news thing. Good news is scoreboard looks good. We finished positive for the day. I think the bad news is that I don't think we played against representative legacy today. I think we played against a bunch of fun and interesting decks, which is one of the great things about legacy. But I think if we increased our sample size and we spent more time playing against Delver that sticks a lot of threats, more time playing against, a Reanimator deck that can just kill us with a Goyf after we stop their initial plans, I think we would be unhappy with this deck. And with the sideboard as it's constructed, there's just not graveyard hate here, right? Like, we are just hoping to stop things while they are on the stack. So when we get paired against something a little, like, ever so slightly off meta, like, say, Dredge, or a not blue-black Reanimator, but a full-on Reanimator deck, like black-red Reanimator, I think when we run into other graveyard-oriented decks, things like Cephalid Breakfast as well, that we're going to have a pretty bad time. I think Standstill is a little bit of a stretch to build around. Control, generally speaking, is suffering in this metagame, and Standstill is maybe less objectively powerful and harder to use than things like Up the Beanstalk or the One Ring might be. And I think the Faeries were pretty weak today. Flare of Denial had a couple of moments throughout the league, but this deck might be better off just slamming some haymakers of its own. Or Murktide Regent. You're not always going to have the Standstill, and just, okay, I have a big dumb thing, and now I'm playing tempo instead of control. Like, I have a 7/7 Murktide Regent, I just need to counter your next 3 spells, and you're going to die. I think if we run into value-oriented decks that some of our counterspells miss, we would also run into some problems. So a lot of the Force of Negation, Spell Pierce type cards are going to be more situational. And we didn't, I think, run into Cavern of Souls decks today, but that's a whole nother problem, right? I forget how many it was, but we had something like 17 counterspells or something like that. And if that is the case, and Cavern of Souls or Aether Vial comes down, we've got some problems. So I think if I was going to revisit this deck, I would be interested in either, or maybe both, either finding redundancy for Standstill with maybe an entire playset of Tamiyos, or maybe the One Ring or something like that, or Ninja of the Deep Hours, or making it so that I have a better chance of playing a tempo game with some big haymakers of my own. Ethereal Foragers, Murktide Regents, something like that. Sideboard felt great. Very happy to the changes that I made to the sideboards. The Harbinger of the Seas in the last round, plus the Null Rods, gave us a very, very strong plan that our opponent did not see in the first game, and just gave us an I win button that the deck otherwise doesn't have. And that's something that a lot of legacy decks have right now, is just something that says, okay, I went unchecked for 2 turns, I win the game. And that's very much missing here. About the closest thing we have to that is Hall of the Storm Giants. And those 2 turns might be like turns 7 and turns 8. I am not sure that we actually ended up activating this league. I had the opportunity to, but I think it was just better for me to like factory beat while holding up some mana. All right, so that was enjoyable. This was a really good way to spend an evening. So Greg, thank you very much for supporting the channel with this donation deck list. I appreciate it. And folks, if you need some Harbinger of the Seas or some Standstills, promo code ThrabenU will save you a little bit on your order. Just saying. All right, have a great rest of the day, folks. See ya.